Great. We are recording now. Again, welcome everyone to our Saturday morning Q&A session with General Manager Sam McCormick. We are, of course, the Assabet Co-op market. Most of you, if not all of you, are owners, but for those of you who are on this call and might not be, we are an initiative to open a full-service grocery store in Maynard. That's the target location, and this is a grocery store like any other grocery store in so many ways, right? Every department you could expect at a grocery store, full service. The big differences, of course, are that we source as much local food as possible. So profits go back to the local economy and local farmers and local food producers. And the other big difference, of course, is that we are owned by you guys now more than 1,200. That's a year ago. More than 1,600 proud owners from more than 40 communities across Massachusetts. So really strong community support. We have already raised $1.5 million of our $2 million capital campaign. We are stronger than ever, and Sam is going to update you on where we're at. I just want to briefly mention a few upcoming events. We're very excited. I'm very excited. As I mentioned, I had my second vaccine a week ago. And so we are going to be getting back out there safely, socially distanced, with masks, into the community, doing tablings at farms and farmers markets and all that. So just very briefly, we've got another Zoom info session coming up with Maynard's Council on Aging. That is on April 22nd at 11:15 a.m. I believe that's a Thursday. We are tabling, very excited to be back to be tabling at Small Farm in Stowe for their plant sale pickups. Those are the last 2 weekends in May. So if you haven't yet, go on their website and check it out. I don't know if they've yet opened it up. I think they have. I think I got an email, but yet opened it up to place your orders. And it's all organic and it's great. It's not certified organic, but it is organic practices. And they're great seedlings, and we put them in our garden. It's awesome. And Elena and Carl are fantastic and very supportive, and co-op owners like us all. We're also going to be tabling at Sienna Farm in Sudbury for their CSA pickup on Thursday, June 24th from 10 to 4. So again, these are opportunities. If you see someone, you've got a friend, you want to introduce them to the co-op, they really want to ask some pertinent questions and they can't get to an info session, tag along with them or go send them to the local farmers market or the local farm we're going to be at and tell them they can ask all their questions and become an owner on the spot. We're also going to be tabling at Hutchins Farm in August. I just got confirmation of that, and we are working on all of the farmers markets right now. We're just waiting for them to get their COVID stipulations in place. But that's Maynard Farmers Market, Acton Boxborough Farmers Market, Hudson Farmers Market, and Wayland Summer Farmers Market. And Sam and I are also going to be getting out to the farms ourselves together to visit with farmers, and because we're at that stage. But I'll let Sam update you on that. Okay, without further ado, Sam McCormick, General Manager of our Assabet Co-op market. I'm going to turn it over to you, and again, put any questions or whatever in the chat, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's really great to be here with everybody. If you all have been on prior Q&As, I've switched locations. We're here in Massachusetts now. My partner and I moved up here at the end of January. And it's been really exciting to be able to drive around and see the area, get to know the region. I am not 100% there yet, but we're working on it. And just really enjoying getting an actual sense of where I've seen these maps, distributions of where all of you, our owners, are living. And it means only so much until you're actually in a place and navigating it and going, oh, okay, I know what it feels like now to drive from here to here. And I know what that would feel like if you're coming to shop or want to come to a community event, something like that. So that's been really interesting for me to get that context. And I welcome any recommendations on local spots. Lauren is really good at going, oh, you have to go to this orchard, or oh, you have to go check out this coffee, so I get a lot of that from him, but I welcome other recommendations as my partner and I explore the area. So yeah, I see some familiar faces, and I know a lot of folks aren't on camera right now. If you all have heard about my background, and that is an ad nauseum, we don't need to talk about it, that's great. If there are folks who don't know much about me and were not on prior live sessions or didn't get a chance to watch any of those videos, and you'd like to hear a bit about my background, feel free to put that in the chat and I can do that at the end of this session. And in the meantime, I'm just going to give a bit of an infrastructure update, talk about some of the work that we've been doing, both Lauren and I, and working with the board, just to get a sense of where we're at in this process of opening our community store. So a couple of pieces that are they're like the nitty-gritty details. So I've worked in other startups, and one of the oh, I've got someone's got a mic off on there. If everyone, just a reminder, if everyone can mute themselves, that would be great. So the details that go into infrastructure development before a store opens is really important. One of the things I've experienced is having to do that infrastructure work after a business is already opened, and it's much more difficult, right? So things like having an accurate staffing plan, having solid policies for how we're all going to interact together. And that's not just staff, that's how member volunteers, owners, the board, how we're all going to work together. Having all of those pieces written out, and sometimes having it written out just so we can disagree with each other, but sometimes that's a great place to start from. We have something to work off of. And thinking about how we incorporate those plans from prior to hiring a whole staff, because one of the things that really guides my process in a leadership role is the thought of servant leadership and open book management. And some of those terms might mean something to some of you, to others, they may be new terms. The core values, though, say that for me, leading a consumer-owned space, the first customer is still my staff. The first customer is still the board. The first customer is internal, because how can we give good service to other people if we don't first give that to each other? And how can I expect a staff body give good service in a public facing space if I don't give good service and support to the staff? So that's a very, very brief summary of what that looks like. There are many books that have been written on the subject and a lot of thoughts around that. But for me, that's a pretty core principle in the work that I've done over the years, to make sure that we're all grounded in that, so that if there are ever moments of change, moments of big change, which often happen in a startup, you have big moments of change over the years once you open the doors. And if we have good, strong baseline understanding of how we're going to work as a team and work together to support the community who owns the space, right? Because then we get to who's our next customer, the owners who own the space, the people who walk in the door every day. Like, that is where care and extension of kindness and community, that's the next step. So having a really strong team and receiving feedback from folks who have open co-ops, open grocery co-ops, who worked through the pandemic, the folks who were the most successful in making it through and actually thriving were those who had really strong teams. So it may seem like a simple line item on a list, on a project list, but having a staffing plan and having policy, procedure, and training planned out, to me, is essential to us opening the doors successfully and being able to provide the kind of service and space that should differentiate us from any grocery store that you walk into. We really should be giving a different experience. So that's an important set of work that I've been thinking about. And it also goes, you think about the dollars as well. So we have to look at what our financial planning for years 1 to 10, which is how we frame how can we be successful. We look at sales performance and expenses from the day the door opens to year 1 to year 10, and look at what things influence our growth. And one of those things is how do we make sure that we're embedding good, supportive financial support to our staff as well? What benefits can we provide from day one? What would really separate us from the next startup if we can offer benefits from state? So what things can we fit into our budget that really set us apart? So those are a number of the things that I'm considering and working on right now with our board, and making sure that we can do the best possible job with all of those things. Another, for me, a fun set of work, Lauren and I have been going through the list of just all the local vendors that are in the region, and really being specific that we're talking hyper local, because often when I think local, I think like 100-mile radius. That's pretty common in the co-op grocery world. We think local is regional often. And so we're talking about a list of folks who are producers, farmers within 50, 25, 10 miles, right? So we're talking hyper local. And that's been amazing. We went through a very long list of vendors and farmers who've been noted to us, or folks that Lauren has met at farmers markets, or people who are owners at the co-op who are also producers. And I'm getting, this is like another piece that really enriches this project for me, because local before for me was the Philadelphia area and the surrounding farms in New Jersey and Western Pennsylvania, right? So I had that sense of local, and so now I'm getting to get acquainted with that in this region. So for me, that's like, this was like the fun stuff. We just get to go through this list and talk about, oh, they have like this person has like the best coffee, and oh man, their eggs, oh man, you know. So that was just like a lot of fun, and I feel like I have so many bookmarks in my phone from those conversations, like must visit, they have good wine, you know. So that's kind of the fun stuff, and I like that even though things are busy here, that we still get to move some of these pieces forward and have conversations about that. And Lauren alluded to this, but you know, this is just a sneak peek into a project that he and I would like to do. I had my first vaccine. I'm scheduled to have my second one next week. So again, after both Lauren and I are vaccinated and masked up and healthy and safe, we would like to hit the road and start to do some visits to local farms and vendors. I'd like to meet folks, right? Because you know, I appreciate context, and I appreciate understanding if somebody says, you know, I can't source to you right now. I just don't have a large of an operation. And then we get to have the conversation on like, well, what kind of support would make a difference for you? What would change that picture for you? Because I think one of the pivotal pieces in how co-ops can support a community is how can we help grow the local economy? How can we, as a place where you can sell, provide a space for you to increase, you know, whatever your product is, and often having a space where you can have consistent sales. You know, we're not trying to compete with local farmers who have farm stands and things like that. We want to work with people. So our goal is to expand and support local providers as much as possible, as much as we can within our budget. And, you know, it's important in that process for me to meet folks and just have those kind of blunt conversations. Like, what would make the difference for you? What is a prohibitive factor? You know, are you interested in growing, or is this kind of the sustainable size of your farm, of your, you know, production line for soap, or whatever that thing might be? So we're interested in setting up visits to those who feel safe to do that, and we'd love to also, you know, have a video series attached to that. You know, we'd like to record some of these moments and have some of these glimpses of our local vendors who are okay with that, you know, who are happy to be in like kind of a local producer video, even if they're folks who don't want to actually sell to us. We want to lift people up regardless. There's no ego in that, right? Everything we do doesn't have to be for the bottom line. One of the there are many core values of cooperatives, but one of them is like cooperation among other co-ops, but cooperation and support of the community. Like, just how can we lift people up? And so that's something interesting to think about, and we'll see who's interested in participating. But I think both Lauren and I are excited to not be working from our living rooms and to be able to get out and about. So yeah, that's something that's coming up that we're both excited about. One other piece I wanted to touch on as far as kind of infrastructure and development work. So it's been 3 months since I've been on board here with the co-op as the general manager. It feels like it's been a year. At the same time, it's been a lot of information to take in. I've been loving it though. And one of the pieces that's been really core to me getting fully acquainted with this now 9-year project is meeting people. So every opportunity like this, I really appreciate, because I own this. I try to work on it, but I'm very bad with names and I'm very good with faces. So I may not remember someone's name, but I can recognize if somebody's been on a Q&A. I can recognize if someone's on a committee. I know, and especially when we have open doors, I'll remember what you like to eat. I'll remember your favorite produce. Those are the kinds of things that often stick in my brain. So I've been having the chance to have Zoom and phone calls with a variety of folks, getting to know some town officials and local folks. I made sure that our membership is active with the Maynard Business Alliance, and I was able to start attending their meetings. And I think it's core to my understanding of the region to be in spaces like that, right? To understand the needs of other local businesses who've been open and struggled through the pandemic, and are working to still provide whatever their product is to the region. So that's been important, and I really appreciate having that space open up. I've also really enjoyed getting to know folks who are owners, who are on committees. That's been another really great space for me to meet folks who've been participating for years in this project, in this startup, and to hear from their perspective how this has felt, right? Because I think it is important to gain that perspective and to understand the board has some perspective in how they've been supporting this project, but the board often turns over. So not everyone on the board has experienced this the whole time, but there are member owners who have been on committees for years, a variety of committees, and really have a depth of knowledge into the struggles and the joys of being an owner as the site search has taken some time, and really understanding that perspective from them has been valuable to me. I also have the benefit of being connected with both the regional and national co-op movement, the grocery co-op movement. So the NFCA is a regional group that supports cooperative grocers, and it's a pretty amazing space. So it gives me the chance to talk with general managers and staff from co-ops all around this region, a lot of folks in Vermont, in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and making those connections is really important. And there's a nice program where they have a peer relationship. So you get paired up with a general manager of an established co-op in the region. And we basically, I can pick up the phone and say, so I'm dealing with this right now, but it's really valuable, because for me, again, it provides two pieces of context. I've worked in an open store, so I have the context of that, but to be opening a store in a region that I'm still being acquainted, learning about, it's really valuable to talk to general managers and staff of co-ops who are here, who've been sourcing from this region, who've been working here for, 20, 30, 40 years. So that piece to me has brought a lot of value. And then just knowing, and I like to give this reassurance that the folks that I know within the national co-op grocer movement, they are cheering for us, right? They want this to happen. And they are not just saying it, they are doing it. They are supporting, they are hopping on calls. They're looking at our financials with us. They're looking at our plans. They're talking about staffing. They're just doing it, right? They're not just saying, hey, you guys are great. They're really there for it. So I just want to lift that up and to remind everybody that I know it's been a long time, but we're at a place where a certain momentum is occurring that is kind of vital to us actually opening our doors. So just keeping those reminders out there, which does lead to the site update that the board shared. That's my last piece. They shared, we have, it's the unfortunate vagueness of a process like this that we can't get too specific. We don't want to be violating any legal things around real estate agreements and things like that. But we've had the opportunity to adjust the specifications in the sites that we're looking at. So one of the pieces, and we have a market study analyst who works with us on any properties that we're interested in and does a sales forecast and looks at the kind of traffic to that area and what kind of parking space do you have, what kind of access to this and that. So we check in with her with each site. And one of the conversations that I had with her was, if we're struggling with any of these, with this process, if we're struggling to identify something that really is a good fit, what can be adjusted? And one of the simplest pieces that we looked at was parking. So we've been looking at dedicated parking as a necessary thing. And what the analyst qualified and clarified was that it has more to do with how close it is to the space. So shared parking could be acceptable as long as it's contiguous. So as long as it is attached to the building, or I don't have to cross the street to get to my car, right? I don't have to walk over here. So keeping that in mind, it really clarified, and it opened up some spaces that like the board had been looking. I mean, they've been doing such hard work, and I don't know how to translate that. Like, it's not visible. I think it's very invisible work that they've been doing. And so we were able to revisit options that had already been brought up and then say, oh no, it doesn't meet the standard. And we were able to go back and we visited 5 sites in 4 weeks. And, it was really eye-opening to see some of the options out there. And at this point, like the board update said, there are 2 that we're considering more strongly, and we'll be really happy to update you if any other news comes out of those as we do due diligence. Emphasis on due diligence, right? We want to be very thorough and make sure that whatever options we're considering, that we're considering all the variables into it being a successful site. So that is just reframing what the board has said in their most recent update. And I'm happy to open it up for questions at this point.
Sam, if it's okay, thank you so much, Sam. If it's okay, I just wanted to, before I forget, 2 owners who were unable to be on this call had a couple of questions. So maybe I can toss those out first and then open it up to the folks who are here, just so I don't forget, because we do have time here.
Absolutely.
So the first question came from someone who visited a local grocer. I'll leave the grocer unnamed. And looked at an apple selection, and there were no local apples, and wondered first why conventional grocers, both corporate and private, tend not to source locally, and what kind of barriers there might be, or challenges there might be for us sourcing as much local food as possible. So that was the first question.
No, I think that's a good question, and I think it can kind of speak to a couple of things. So the first one is when you talk about some larger regional chains of conventional grocery stores, it's often a volume issue. They're sourcing large volume, and they have to have consistent large volume. So number one, we can often have smaller selections of local product, and it is more available in the sense that we're not stocking 5 chains and wanting to have the same product at all of those locations. But we also are embedding in our model the desire to have local. So we're saying, even if that's providing a bushel of this local vendor's product, we're doing our best to make space on the shelf for them. The other piece is, right now it's out of season. And so one of the things is, you're not going to see local apples on our shelves in March if we're open, if we're open in I would, fingers crossed, if we had a store open in a year and we were looking at the shelves in March, you're probably not going to see, unless they have cold storage or something, you're not going to see a lot of local apples, right? Because they're out of season. But if we're in the fall, you're going to see a lot of local product. And then, thinking about seasons, what could you see local? So you can see the eggs and cheese and things like that during the winter. And in the summer, you're going to see a ton of greens, and you're going to see all of this product. It's going to have to be seasonal, though. And being in the Northeast, that's a very defined set of product that you have throughout the year. And now we would like to provide that type of product throughout the year so that people have a consistent source of greens and apples and things like that. So it will mean that at different times in the year, we have to supplement our selection with outside of the region product. So that is my short answer there.
Thank you. Yeah, and Mary Ann pointed out there are some orchards in the region that have cold storage to extend their seasons a little bit. So and that's part of the conversations we have with local farmers and orchard owners around that. What can we source and when? So great. The second question was generally, what level of assistance and support from Maynard town officials do we have for locating our co-op in town, and specifically in the downtown? And that owner had framed the question around this kind of vacuum effect that's happening, where some downtown businesses are moving to the large development at 129 Parker Street right now, leaving some pockmarks in the downtown.
I can't really speak for the town of Maynard. I can only speak to the folks that I have been introduced to, and everyone that I've spoken with is really encouraging of us being located in Maynard and being located in the downtown region. And I would love to continue to have those conversations with folks who are on the council and folks who are part of the, the staff for the town. So it is my understanding that folks are encouraging, but I can't speak for the town in that sense,
Yeah, and I can at least attest to, prior to Sam being here at the town, when we first started this, and there were just a few owners coming on board, there wasn't enough of a business and a co-op community to support. But in the years since, the town has been very supportive at every step, and meeting with us and looking for opportunities with us, and so we've got that level of support a lot throughout the process, basically. Okay, so there are a bunch of questions coming in the chat. Sam, can you see the chat?
I can see the chat. All right, let's take a look.
Let you handle that.
Are these on your list as potential vendors? Clark Farm, Sienna Farm, Pony Shack Cidery. I could safely say that a number of these have come across my list of folks that we should talk to. So I will reiterate that right now there are no vendor agreements in place. We don't do that until we have a site and that we actually have buyers that are coming on board. My distinction, I think this is a piece that this is a great question because it answers something that has come up in other spaces. As a general manager, I'm going to be involved in product selection from a mission, vision, values perspective, right? I want to make sure that the products that we have on the shelves align with our ends, align with the desire from our owners and what they'd like to see on the shelves, and the desire from the community who aren't owners, right? I do want to keep folks in mind because this is open to the public. I want to make sure we're a welcoming space for all. I also want to keep in mind that I don't plan on micromanaging our buying process. And I would like to hire buying staff who actually help to get our vendor agreements in place. So I can safely say that some of the vendors that were listed by Pamela are on a list of folks that we are researching and wanting to talk with. And I can't guarantee vendor agreements with any of them because that is not the moment that we're in, but these are folks that I'd love to talk with, yeah. All right, and then Kimberlyn Drake, there's value in there's value in owners trying to connect to schools in order to increase local content for school lunches. I think this theme is absolutely where I believe our mission and ends for community support are. I'm a huge advocate of how can we use the co-op space and resources to support any local orgs that are doing work to fight hunger and to fight, food access issues in the region. So I am working on ways that we can be connected with local orgs and local process around this. So really, if anyone has introductions they'd like to make, feel free to shoot Lauren emails and suggestions and stuff. And I'm happy to meet folks because this is core to our mission, right? Is supporting the local community. Well, not just welcoming people, and that can sometimes feel kind of passive, but actively doing what we can. And I have to keep in mind within the budget that we have, because we have to be able to keep the doors open to continue to do this work, right? But within the means that we have, what can we do to support local orgs who are already doing this work? And because we are a food-oriented space, there are ways that sometimes we can do this differently than an org that's just a broad support network, right? We're very specific to food. So how can we impact that? So I think that's a great question. And I'd love any suggestions and folks to meet and connect with. Yeah, absolutely. All right. I don't see any other questions as of right now. I appreciate the comments coming in. If anyone has a question, you just want to raise your hand or
Sam,
virtually raise your hand.
There are a couple.
Oh, there are more?
They're going to everyone. So Cindy Mello, neighbor of mine, writes, what percentage of the locations being vetted are in Maynard versus other towns?
What percentage? A large percentage. I have to stay vague. I'm sorry. A large percentage. The board has been clear. I'm going to reiterate the standards that the board has communicated over the years regarding site selection. That our region for looking is Maynard and the surrounding towns, but that the emphasis and the goal is to have a site in Maynard. So just understand that that is still the emphasis in the search, but the board would not be doing the due diligence process properly if they weren't looking at all available sites within the region.
And there was another question that kind of dovetails on the school connection question. So if there's anything to add to it, feel free. Dan writes, do you and or Lauren have an expectation to go into schools to make kids aware of us? That
is something that I would want to get feedback from the parent and school community on. I think there's great ways in which we can do programming with kids and to educate. I mean, just doing an education series on what's a co-op and how can we participate in community development as a co-op, because being a grocer is not the only way to be a co-op, right? There's a lot of different ways that we can cooperatively work together. There's farmer co-ops, there are just general buying club co-ops for businesses that do like sourcing together. There's things like that. There's a whole variety. I mean, there's cooperative anything and everything. So I think having an education series would be great. I'd want to talk with, like Lauren and I would want to definitely talk with school leaders and the parent teacher groups and stuff like that to see what kind of space we'd have for it. And we also have to look at what our capacity is like in the next 6 months as we continue our site search. My hope is that our site search is over soon, and then we're in the churning madness that is opening a store. So something like this is a great idea, and it may be something that would be better to implement once we have a store that's open, because I might also have more resource for anyone's time to be able to go in and do a series like that.
And do you see that one that just popped up?
You could go ahead and keep reading them off because some are coming through and some aren't coming through to me. Yeah.
Okay. So Brooke asks, as part of the co-op's efforts to become a community hub around food and sustainability, would it be possible to have TerraCycle drop-off bins?
That is the kind of thing that I'd be very interested in developing, ways that we could be a hub. It will be dependent on what site we end up with, right? What kind of restrictions we have, either for use from the town or use if it ends up being a lease, then we have to deal with whoever may own. Because to clarify, we are looking at both purchase and lease. Like we have to look at all options. So that could define some different standards as far as what and how we can use the surrounding property of a building, right? So it's something that would be really, frankly, it would be really cool if we could set up some recycling and composting and all that kind of hub. That would be pretty amazing. And we have to see what site we end up with to really determine that. All right. These are really great questions. I appreciate everyone kind of thinking and a lot of themes around community support and development. So I will say I was on the Acton and Maynard corridor video call on Thursday. There's a development project that the two towns have been doing to improve the powder mill corridor between Acton and Maynard. And it was interesting to hear feedback. There were a lot of folks on that call. I think they had around 80 some people from both towns. And it was really interesting to hear the things. They did a few polls throughout, and it was interesting to hear the things that seemed most impactful to folks. Accessibility to be able to walk through an area that's by the river, right? And spaces to enjoy the place you are. Like the emphasis was on community, right? It comes back to that again and again. Where and how can we develop and support the development of the town and the region so that we all can use it more and use it in a way that's not just respectful of the environment, but also actively supporting and going against the degradation of the environment. Like, how can we actually be a force for good and put in native plants and build bioswales and do, you know, like all of the things that, how do we do all this stuff that's not just gonna be like, we're not making it worse, how can we also make it better? There's a lot of that kind of information that was being shared, and I thought that was really great to see. Yeah.
So I think that's it for questions. If anyone has any questions that pop up, or questions that friends are asking about the co-op after you get off this call, you talk to folks this weekend, hey, you should join the co-op, and they have questions that you can't answer, feel free to email me. You can email me at Lorne, Lorne at, Lorne at asvetmarket.coop. I can certainly relay those to Sam. I don't know if there's a better way, but that has seemed to work for us for a bit now.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I appreciate that. And just to be clear, I'm not wanting to be snobbish and not get communication from folks, but my inbox does fill up pretty quickly every day. So it does help to have channels. So Lauren is a channel for outreach and communication. The board also has an email now. So board@asvetmarket.coop. So keeping in mind that we want to make sure there are open communication channels, and I have a lot of that every day. So some folks are acting as filters, and I greatly appreciate the work that they do for that. But trust that I'll receive communication if it's directed to me. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So, and if any of you are on the call again, who are and you're not a co-op owner, hopefully you got some of your questions answered today and got a little bit more insight into what we're doing. And you can also always go to asvetmarket.coop and see the whole rundown about our locally sourced community-owned grocery store, and of course become owner number 1,631 as of a few days ago.
Oh, we're hitting over that. We're close to the 40s.
Maybe it's 40.
And I would say, for those of you who are owners, and I do recognize faces of owners here, talk about us. You know, I think there are a number of folks that may have hit a fatigue point, that not just because we've been doing this for many, many years, but because we've had a pandemic and we have all of these things that are making us all feel pretty exhausted, right? But I think we're at a point where and this isn't me being optimistic, you know, we would like to be opening a store very soon, and we would love to continue to have more owners come in and support this project. As a consumer-owned space, we're not just counting up the numbers to be like, ooh, look, our numbers are really high. That is like, ooh, the community is invested in this project. And I think emphasizing that, right? Like, it's the investment piece. It's saying, like, I want to be part of owning and developing a community space, a grocery store, to provide access to the community for like in a different way than you get at another store. So just keeping in mind, sometimes word of mouth is the best way to share this, right? So just if you happen to be able to be out and about a little bit more with the nice weather and vaccines and things like that, you know, tell people about us. We have, you know, you can send them to our website, you can send them to Lauren, you know, but it's a space where I encourage all of us to think about this and how it impacts different people's lives. So share it around.
Awesome. Well, thank you all of the owners who joined us today. I think we have 30 owners on the call today. And of course, thank you so much to Sam for taking some time and you know, keeping the channels open with our growing and large co-op community. And come and see us at any of those events I mentioned. And we'll send you guys updates as we have them. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you all so much. It's great to see everyone today.
Hey, Lauren, before you go, I joined late. What were the events that you mentioned? Sorry.
Oh, no problem. I mentioned that we've got we've got an info session, virtual info session with the Maynard Council on Aging on April 22nd. We'll be tabling at Small Farm, I think the last 2 weekends, but certainly one of the last 2 weekends in May for their plant sale pickup. And you can go to their website. That's in Stowe, and you can go to their website, Small Farm's website.
I'm headed there now. To get finished. Yeah.
Great. And then we'll be tabling at Sienna Farm in Sudbury on June 24th for their CSA pickup. at Hutchins Farm is in August. And then we are working right now, Marianne and I, who's also on this call, she sets up all of our farmers markets on tabling. We're just waiting for the COVID restrictions to be firmly established, but tabling at the Maynard Farmers Market, Acton Boxborough Farmers Market, Hudson Farmers Market, and Wayland Farmers Market. So we will be back out there on the scene, smiling behind our masks. So it'll be great.
Okay.
And I just saw a note to continue to do these updates as frequently as you see fit. Absolutely, we plan to keep doing these. So even as things open up and we're able to be outside this summer, we know that's not the case for everybody, and we absolutely plan to continue doing video series and doing Q&As. And I just, I feel a void of being able to connect with folks in traditional ways, the way that we do co-op community events and things in a non-COVID world. So yeah, we plan to continue these, so look out for updates on the next one in the series. Yeah.
Great.
Great. Thank you, everyone, again. Get out there and enjoy the weather before it turns a little bit cooler, but
Yeah.
way and the co-op's coming. And thank you guys so much for your faith and support. And let's do this.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.